He was only 18. Yet on November 11th, 1944, Josef Wende faced a firing squad in Toul, France. Captured behind enemy lines, he stood not as a soldier, but as a spy, someone the Allied forces claimed had donned civilian clothes to gather intelligence. His mission: cross the Moselle River, observe Allied strength, and return. It was daring, it was dangerous, and it ended in execution. On September 24, 1944, Wende and another German conscript, Stefan Cordes, disguised themselves in civilian attire and slipped past German lines. Their plan was to reach Allied positions and feed information back. But behind the facade, chaos reigned. Crossing such lines was lethal, and they were discovered by American troops, far from the protection of Geneva. He wasn't tried in a right court. He was judged by a U.S. military commission, not for murder or mass murder, but for espionage. On October 18, 1944, when he was convicted, the charge: gathering military intelligence in civilian garb, a breach of the rules of war. For Allied law, spies were not soldiers. They could be shot. The location mattered. Toul, in northeastern France, was scarred by war. As Wende awaited his sentence, the town had already witnessed occupations, retreats, and battles. By November, the atmosphere was tense. Allied soldiers hunted, spies feared. On November 11th, 1944, his sentence was carried out in the garden of a farmhouse near Toul. He stood before a U.S. firing squad, calm and composed. At 18, still better known as a teenager, he became a symbol of the fragile boundary between soldier and spy, survival and death. There were never allegations of war crimes. No mass murder. No gas chambers. Just intelligence gathering. But to the Americans, his act was a betrayal. And betrayal in war, by their laws, was punishable by death. The procedure was fast. No lengthy trials. No appeals. The rifles cracked. A life ended in an instant at a place far from home. Today, his case raises questions. Was justice served? Was an 18-year-old involved in espionage deserving of execution? Under Geneva, spies were to be treated as criminals, not POWs. Allies said it was legal. Critics called it cold, clinical, and harsh. But for Toul, for that farmhouse yard, the execution became another mark on the landscape of war. A reminder that in the fog of conflict, youth and innocence can be lost with a single act, crossing a line drawn in civilian clothes. Ion Antonescu was a Romanian military leader and politician who served as the country's leader during World War II. A former general, he came to power in 1940 after King Carol II abdicated. Antonescu formed an alliance with the fascist Iron Guard and declared himself conjugator, or supreme leader of Romania. Under his leadership, Romania became a close ally of Nazi Germany. He admired Adolf Hitler and aligned Romania with the Axis powers. In June 1941, Antonescu ordered Romanian troops to join the German invasion of the Soviet Union during Operation Barbarossa. He believed this would help Romania regain territories lost to the Soviets. Between 1941 and 1944, Romanian authorities deported, starved, and executed tens of thousands of Jews and Roma civilians. Ghettos, forced labor camps, and mass shootings were common. While Romania later refused to deport Jews from the Romanian mainland to Nazi camps, the crimes committed in occupied areas were widespread and deadly. Antonescu remained loyal to Hitler even when the war turned against Germany. In contrast to other Axis leaders who tried to change sides, he refused to negotiate with the Allies or the Soviet Union. His stubbornness isolated Romania as the Red Army approached in 1944. In August 1944, King Michael led a coup and removed Antonescu from power. He was arrested and handed over to the Soviets. This sudden shift allowed Romania to switch sides and join the Allies, shortening the war in Eastern Europe. Antonescu was later returned to Romanian authorities. He was tried by the People's Tribunal in Bucharest, a special court established under Soviet supervision to judge war crimes. The trial was swift and political. Antonescu was found guilty of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians. He did not deny his actions. In fact, He defended many of his decisions during the trial, insisting they were necessary for Romania's survival. But the evidence was overwhelming. In May 1946, the court sentenced him to death. On June 1st, 1946, Ion Antonescu was executed by firing squad at Jalava prison near Bucharest. Alongside him, 3 of his closest associates were also executed. Mihai Antonescu, his foreign minister and no relation, Constantine Vasiliu, head of the gendarmerie, and Gheorghe Alexinu, governor of Transnistria. All 4 were shot together early that morning. Their executions marked one of the most significant post-war punishments in Eastern Europe. It was seen both as justice for the victims of the Romanian Holocaust and as a demonstration of the new communist-backed regime's authority. They led Romania into a dark alliance, caused the deaths of thousands, and tried to justify it all in the name of survival. Do you believe Ion Antonescu and his men truly paid the price they deserved? April 23, 1945. Near the town of Kitzingen, Germany, a young man stood tied to a wooden post. His name was Richard Jarcyzk, just 32 years old. In front of him, an American firing squad prepared to carry out his execution. Minutes later, his story would end in a single volley. But how'd he get here? Jarcyzk had once served in a Volksgrenadier division during the last stages of the war. But rather than remain on the front lines, he volunteered for something else, something darker. He agreed to go behind American lines dressed as a civilian, gathering intelligence and carrying out sabotage. He became a spy. When he was captured by U.S. forces, Jarcyzk was not wearing a uniform. He claimed to be an innocent German seeking peace. But the materials found in his possession told a different story. Maps, coded instructions, and training notes. He was part of Operation Werewolf, a last-ditch Nazi effort to slow the Allied advance through guerrilla tactics. Under the rules of war, a soldier caught in enemy territory without a uniform is considered a spy, not a prisoner of war. And spies face one penalty, death. A brief military trial followed. Jarcyzk offered no defense. He admitted his role and did not ask for mercy. The court sentenced him to death by firing squad. Preparations were made quickly. The location: a small clearing on the edge of a forest near Kitzingen. The U.S. Army wanted the execution to be swift, quiet, and by the book. On the morning of April 23rd, Jarcyzk was led to the post. He did not resist. His hands were tied behind his back, and a blindfold was placed over his eyes. There were no final words. He simply waited. Cameras were rolling. Army photographers captured the entire event. The command was given. The rifles fired in unison. Jarcyzk slumped forward, dead before he hit the ground. Documents recovered from his body confirmed his mission. The sabotage plans were detailed, with clear targets and instructions. This was not a lone operation. He was a small part of a much larger plan, an underground resistance trying to inflict damage even as the Nazi regime was collapsing. His death was recorded and documented as a warning. The Allied message was clear. Those who broke the rules of war, who posed threats from within, would face the consequences. And they wanted it on film. Jarcyzk never became a symbol or a name etched in memorials. He left no legacy, just grainy footage and sealed court transcripts. A quiet execution filed away in history. Was justice served that day, or was it simply the last act in a war already lost?